In real life, we often measure people by what we see: money, status, age, or appearance, while ignoring the quiet power of character. This story reflects a truth we all need to remember. Real influence doesn't come from fear or wealth, but from kindness, courage, and sincere intention. Those society overlooks can carry wisdom that changes lives, and even the most powerful individuals can be moved by genuine humanity. When we stop judging and start listening, true transformation begins.
The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Chicago's South Side as Jin-Ho Park's black Mercedes pulled up to a corner burger joint that had seen better days. The neon sign flickered weakly, and graffiti covered most of the exterior walls. Jin-Ho stepped out, his Italian leather shoes meeting cracked pavement. His tailored suit, worth more than most people in this neighborhood, made in months. He needed food and anonymity after the morning's brutal territory negotiations. And this forgotten place offered both. Inside, the smell of grease and old coffee filled the air. A tired-looking teenager manned the register, barely glancing up from his phone. Jin-Ho ordered a simple burger and fries, reaching for his wallet with practiced ease. The card reader beeped its rejection. He tried another card. Same result. His jaw tightened as he remembered his accountant mentioning something about security freezes after unusual activity. "I'll need to call," he began, his voice carrying the edge of barely contained frustration that made most people step back. 4 crumpled dollar bills appeared on the counter, pushed forward by a small brown hand. Jin-Ho looked down to see a little girl, maybe 8 years old, with neat cornrows and a backpack covered in faded superhero stickers. She wore a school uniform that had been mended multiple times, but was spotlessly clean. "That should cover it," Amara Williams said simply, meeting his surprised gaze with steady brown eyes. The teenager took the money and handed over the food. Jin-Ho stood frozen, holding the warm bag as the child moved past him to order a small water cup free. "Wait," Jin-Ho called out, his voice softer than he'd heard it in years. "Why did you do that?" Amara shrugged. "You looked hungry. My mama says we should help when we can." Jin-Ho pulled out a $100 bill from his money clip. "Let me pay you back." "That's okay, mister. I don't need it back." She paused at the door, then turned with a brightness that seemed to illuminate the dingy restaurant. "But there is something you could help me with." Jin-Ho found himself leaning forward, curious despite himself. "What's that?" "My teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, says we need successful people for career day next Friday." "You look successful." She gestured at his suit with the matter-of-fact assessment only children possess. "Would you come talk about being a businessman?" The request was so unexpected, so innocent, that Jin-Ho nearly laughed. This child had no idea. She was asking one of Chicago's most dangerous men to speak to second graders about his career. "You want me to come to your school?" he asked carefully. "Yes, sir. What's in elementary? Room 203, 2 o'clock. She pulled a crumpled flyer from her backpack and handed it to him. "I told Ms. Rodriguez I'd find someone. She didn't believe me, but I knew I would." Jin-Ho looked at the flyer, then at the child's hopeful face. In her eyes, he wasn't the man who controlled half the city's underground operations. He was just a successful businessman who might know interesting things about the world. "What's your name?" he asked. "Amara Williams, sir." "Well, Amara Williams," Jin-Ho heard himself saying, surprising them both. "I'll be there." Her smile transformed her entire face. "Really, you promise?" Jin-Ho hadn't made a promise he intended to keep in years, but looking at this child who'd spent her last $4 on a stranger, he nodded. "I promise." As Amara skipped out of the restaurant, Jin-Ho remained standing there, holding a burger bought with a little girl's kindness, wondering when exactly his carefully controlled world had tilted off its axis. Asterisk, asterisk. The Detroit winter bit through Tajone. Kim's leather jacket as he hunched over the burger shop's cracked Formica counter. 3 months of hiding had worn him thin. The sole deal that went sideways had put a price on his head that followed him across the Pacific. His reflection in the greasy window showed a ghost of the man once feared as the ghost himself, the underworld's most efficient problem solver. 7:50. the cashier announced, sliding the wrapped burger across the counter. Taejan reached for his wallet, finding only empty leather. He'd spent his last cash on the motel room, and using cards meant leaving digital footprints. His hands stilled, as shame washed over him, reduced to this, unable to pay for a simple meal. "I got it." A small voice piped up beside him. A young black girl, maybe 10, stood on tiptoes to place for crumpled bills and scattered coins on the counter. Her winter coat was patched but clean. Her braided hair, neat, despite the worn edges of everything else about her. "That's my allowance money," Keisha Johnson explained, matter-of-factly, counting out exact change. "You looked hungry, mister." Taejan stared at the child, then at the money. In his world, nothing came free. "What do you want?" Keisha tilted her head, considering. "Well, there is something. Can you teach me Korean?" The request was so unexpected that Taejun almost smiled. "Am I Korean? My mama's sick. She says Korean words when she sleeps, and I want to understand. The doctors don't know what she needs." Her brown eyes held a determination that reminded him painfully of his brother, the brother who'd died in a military hospital 20 years ago. "What's your mother's name?" Fee asked carefully. "Grace Johnson. She was an army nurse." The burger turned to ash in Taecheon's mouth. Grace Johnson, the American nurse, who'd held his brother's hand as he died, who'd tried so desperately to save him when their unit was ambushed. She'd written to their family afterward, a letter full of sorrow and regret that his mother had kept until her death. "I'll teach you," he heard himself say. Their lessons began in the burger shop. Keisha, arriving each day after school with a worn notebook. Taejeon taught her Hangul, basic phrases, the careful pronunciation of words that might help her understand her mother's fevered rambling. As weeks passed, he learned Grace's story, the guilt she'd carried, the soldier she couldn't save, how she'd named her daughter Keisha because it sounded like the Korean word for miracle. The afternoon Keisha finally understood her mother's words. She went pale. "She keeps saying I'm sorry and forgive me," and a name. Kim Tae-swang, Taeseon's brother. But there was more. Grace was mixing memories, calling out for another soldier through careful questions. Taejan pieced together the truth. His father had died in the same ambush, trying to save Tae-seon. Grace had watched both men die, powerless to help either. "Your mother tried to save my family," Taejan told Keisha gently. "She has nothing to be sorry for." That night, Taejan's past found him. 2 assassins cornered him in the parking lot behind the burger shop. As gunfire erupted, Keisha appeared she'd forgotten her notebook. Instead of running, she pulled out Taechan's phone and, in perfect Korean, spoke the emergency phrases he'd taught her as examples of formal speech. His sole contacts heard a child's voice speaking their code words and mobilized immediately. Taej took 3 bullets, protecting Keisha. As he lay bleeding, she held his hand the way Grace had held his brother's, whispering Korean words of comfort she'd learned just that week. He survived and used every resource at his disposal to get Grace into an experimental treatment program. Though the cancer eventually won, Grace died peacefully, knowing the truth that the soldier's family forgave her, that her daughter was loved and protected. Asterisk, asterisk. The Atlanta heat shimmered off the pavement as Sungmin Lee stood at the outdoor burger stand. His phone screened, mocking him with another failed payment notification. The app his organization used for untraceable transactions had chosen the worst moment to glitch. Behind him, his 2 bodyguards shifted nervously. Their boss didn't like appearing vulnerable, even in something as trivial as buying lunch. "I can help," a small voice cut through his irritation. A young black girl, no more than 9, stood beside him, clutching 4 worn dollar bills. Her hair was styled in 2 puffballs, and despite the heat, she wore a jacket too big for her small frame. "It's okay," Zara Thompson said, placing the money on the counter. "I earned this, helping Mrs. Chen with her groceries. But you need it more right now." Sungmin studied the child. In 15 years of running Atlanta's Korean criminal network, He'd learned to read people like others read books. But this girl's open expression and genuine kindness created a crack in his carefully maintained armor. "I'll pay you back," he said, accepting the burger. Zara shook her head. "Actually, could you help me instead? My sister Maya is missing." "Call the police," Sung-min said automatically, though he knew how useless that advice was in this neighborhood. "They said she probably ran away, but Maya wouldn't leave me." Zara looked up at him with startling perception. "You have sad eyes like Maya did after our parents died, but you look strong enough to bring her home." The observation hit Sung-min like a physical blow. No one saw past his cold exterior. No one dared to look that closely. "Why me?" "Because you're not really mean," Zara said simply. "Mean people don't look surprised when someone is nice to them." Against every instinct, Sung-min found himself taking down Maya's information. What started as curiosity became urgent when his network revealed the truth: Maya had been taken by traffickers. Worse, they were the same group his organization had been trying to eliminate. Not out of altruism, but because they brought unwanted federal attention. Zara refused to stay safely aside during the search. Her knowledge of the neighborhood's hidden corners, her ability to slip through spaces and overhear conversations proved invaluable. She had an uncanny talent for sensing danger, pulling Sung-min back from 2 ambushes with whispered warnings about feeling wrong. The night of the rescue, everything unraveled. In the warehouse where Maya was being held, Sung-min came face to face with his lieutenant Jin, overseeing the operation. "You've gone soft," Jin sneered, gun-trained on his boss. "First, you want to shut down profitable operations. Now you're playing hero for some kid." The standoff might have ended badly, but Zara had followed, despite strict orders to stay in the car. She burst through a side door, crying loudly about being lost, creating chaos among the guards. In the confusion, Sung-min disarmed Jin, and his men moved in. They found Maya and 12 other girls in a hidden basement. As Sung-min held the traumatized teenager while she cried for her sister, he saw his own sister's face, the one he'd failed to protect 20 years ago, the failure that had driven him into this life of controlled violence. The trafficking ring's destruction was thorough and merciless, but it marked the beginning of something else. Sung-min became the Thompson sisters' legal guardian, using his considerable resources to ensure their education and safety. Gradually, his entire organization shifted, the criminal enterprise transforming into legitimate security and import businesses. 13 years later, Sung-min sat in a university auditorium watching Zara graduate with honors in criminal justice. In her valedictorian speech, she spoke about ripple effects, how one act of kindness could transform not just individual lives, but entire communities. "Someone once told me I wasn't really mean," Zara said, her eyes finding Sung-min in the crowd. They were wrong. He wasn't mean at all. He was just lost, waiting for someone to remind him of the way home.